Growing up in the heart of a bustling city, with dreams larger than my modest means, I often felt the heavy weight of responsibility even before I became a mother. I met the world with open arms, yet clung to a fierce resolve. In the warm glow of my little kitchen, the sweet scent of cookies baking would fill our small apartment, crafting a world where my son, James, thrived. I remember the way he would dash into the kitchen after school, the sound of his small feet pattering against the linoleum, laughter spilling from his lips as he caught a whiff of chocolate chip cookies fresh out of the oven. Every moment spent with him was a true treasure. I poured myself into nurturing him, supporting him through the trials of childhood and adolescence. There were times when finances were tight, when I juggled more than one job, awakening at dawn, fueled by the vision of a better life for my son. Yet those struggles melted away during our cherished moments together, when I would cheer as he scored his first soccer goal, celebrating his achievements with a heartfelt squeeze of his hand, the warmth of those simple gestures weaving a bond of unwavering love. I remember the late nights we spent working on school projects, curled up around the kitchen table strewn with markers and papers, our laughter echoing through the walls. The pride I felt as I encouraged him through challenges defined the very core of my identity. My heart surged every time he called out, "Mom," with an unbridled enthusiasm that filled our home with light. Yet, amid those joyful recollections, whispers of warning reverberated through my mind. From early on, I had sensed an undercurrent of unease surrounding James's relationships, but I brushed it aside, my focus narrow and steadfast on his happiness. Perhaps I chose to ignore the signs, the dismissive glances exchanged between Jenna and me, the way she would subtly undermine my parenting choices or critique my attire. I thought every family needed time to adjust, convincing myself that Jenna might simply need to learn about our history, about our fabric woven with love. Still, the shadows lingered. Even as I rejoiced in James's successes, something began to shift. I tried to welcome Jenna into our lives with open arms, always offering my support in planning family gatherings and celebrating milestones. It felt good to be part of a growing family, and I believed our bond could thrive. I imagined long summer days filled with laughter, teaching my future grandchildren how to bake and nurturing a legacy of love that would carry through generations. But with every attempt to connect, Jenna's coldness chilled my optimism. The small barbs slid past my defenses, each remark laced with a quiet disdain. I found myself straightening the tablecloths and rearranging the flowers at our gatherings, desperate for approval, but I could see the flickers of judgment in her eyes. In the sanctuary of my memories, I felt warmth replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. Reflecting on those moments, guilt nibbled at the edges of my heart. I wanted my son to be happy, yet I feared the closeness we'd built was being chipped away brick by brick. But in every sacrifice I made, my love remained unyielding. I fed him with resilience, empowerment, and faith in himself, ingredients I thought would build a strong foundation against any storm. Little did I know, the biggest storm was yet to come, lurking just beneath the surface of our family dynamic. For years, I had devoted myself to shaping the man my son had become. I believed this love would continue to seal our bond, a promise of unwavering support. Yet the whispers of neglect were beginning to rise, and the path I meticulously crafted was slowly becoming unrecognizable. My heart raced with a sinking feeling. How did I end up here preparing to defend my dignity in the very household I once called home? The summer of their engagement was a season of transformation. Jenna entered our lives like a swirling gust of wind, captivating, invigorating, and undeniably tumultuous. Flashes of her remarkable ambition and charm enveloped my son, James, and for a time I felt the world blossom around us. I can still picture that crisp afternoon when he introduced her to me, a beauty with cascading chestnut hair, piercing green eyes, and a smile that dazzled with an almost magnetic allure. "Mom, this is Jenna," he beamed, pure elation illuminating his face. My heart swelled as I extended my hand, aware of the hopes fluttering in my chest. I imagined all that could unify our families, a gentle merging of traditions and histories as we welcomed Jenna into our fold. But as I placed my hand in hers, an almost imperceptible chill shot through me, a premonition I undeniably dismissed, believing it mere nerves. Jenna wasted no time making herself at home, but the longer she stayed, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that shadows began to dance around her. I caught her whispering jokes to James that sliced their laughter through the air, warm while subtly sharp. "He could never keep plants alive," I heard her quip, followed by a rehearsed giggle. My breath caught in my throat. Was it a joke or a jab? I brushed off the uninvited pang of insecurity that crept across my heart. As days turned to weeks, Jenna's facade of charm transformed, revealing subtle cracks in the gilded armor she wore. The first stirring of concern brewed during a family dinner one Sunday evening. The aroma of rosemary chicken filled the room, and I served each dish with care, striving to impress my future daughter-in-law. What I didn't anticipate was how Jenna could turn the most joyful day into an uncomfortable circus of scrutiny. As we settled at the dining table, Jenna regarded the centerpiece, lifting an eyebrow as she surveyed my efforts. "I suppose these flowers were on sale," she quipped, her smile sharp and biting. It felt like a barb aimed directly at my heart, and I recoiled inwardly. Friends and family exchanged uneasy glances while I smiled through it, suppressing the sting of her remarks. "Rose has always had a flair for creating a warm atmosphere," James said, trying to deflect the tension. But his tone lacked the ardor I needed, as if he too felt deep down the rift that began to fray the corners of our family tapestry. It didn't take long for Jenna's perfectionist tendencies to unveil themselves further. As I offered to help with the planning for James's upcoming birthday party, my enthusiasm bubbling over, casting away the prior sullenness, Jenna's dismissiveness turned calculating. "No need, Rose. I have everything under control," she insisted, her voice clipped. Each word was a careful stone thrown in a shifting dynamic, solidifying barriers between us. I swallowed the urge to advocate for myself. Perhaps this was what it meant to grant space to a new family member. Yet each interaction resonated with an impending sense of inadequacy. I pictured moments we could have shared, mapping out a grand celebration together, collaborating on ideas like I had done with James throughout his childhood. But in the reality of the moment, I could only feel a tightening in my chest. Jenna's subtle jabs were often disguised as humor, clipped remarks that left me bewildered. At a family cookout, I had prepared a batch of my famous potato salad, and Jenna casually tossed her own dish onto the table, a vibrant lemon dill concoction she flaunted as superior. "You know, I try to pay attention to health trends," she declared, her dismissive nod barely hidden behind the brightness of her smile. That day, the glint in her eye sparked an unsettling knot in my stomach, and I could only silently watch as our family divided itself, hovering around her like moths to a flame. Yet, in the chaos of those fleeting moments, I tried to rationalize Jenna's shortcomings as mere adjustments. I desperately wanted to believe that if I continued to extend love, she would eventually warm to the heart of our family. I envisioned summer afternoons filled with laughter, children playing with abandoned toys in the grass, and the sound of tinkering dishes in our kitchen. However, my optimism slowly dimmed. Subtle disdain replaced the warmth of family gatherings. With every bite of food, the joy I had once derived from our time together became clouded by Jenna's carefully curated barbs. I couldn't escape the growing realization that I was wandering down a path that drowned my spirit in shadows, and within these familial walls, I found myself slipping between the crevices of our lives. Days turned into restless nights, where sleep became an elusive specter as the weight of my new reality resided heavily upon my chest. In my heart, I knew I needed to confront this ever-deepening treachery. Yet James was caught in the crossfire, navigating between two fronts, a husband to Jenna, while somehow still being my son. The delicate balance I needed to preserve felt like walking a tightrope, teetering ever closer to a fall. As the months passed and the charade continued, a growing unease took root in my heart, silent warnings ringing louder than ever. I needed to prepare myself for the looming confrontation, for I now realized that beneath Jenna's winning facade lurked a genuine threat to my connection with my son and the love I had nurtured for decades. The initial flickers of red flags were now blazing, sparks heralding a spark I could no longer ignore. Family gatherings, once vibrant with laughter, now felt like carefully constructed arenas for Jenna's barbs. The more I tried to foster connection, the more her contempt unfurled, cloaked in smiles but sharp with ridicule. I remember that summer picnic when we laid our blanket on the grass, the sun shining brightly overhead. As I attempted to engage with the children, recalling the playful joy that used to fill such moments, Jenna swooped in. "Let me handle the kids. You'd probably drop them," she said coolly, her laughter echoing, laced with disdain. The whisper of gasps traveled around the picnic, yet no one challenged her words. I could feel my heart sink, the memories of parenting my son flooding my mind, the countless hours spent teaching him caution with the very gentleness I extended toward him. My palms rather dampened with anxiety as I masked my hurt, forcing a smile while feeling swallowed whole by her disdain. But it was more than just snide remarks at picnics. It was an ongoing pattern of dismissals, each one unraveling my spirit. During another family dinner, I had decided to prepare my signature pasta sauce. Jenna took the dish I had lovingly made and with a bright smile chirped, "Oh, I never really liked that one. How about I whip something fresh instead?" Her words cut deep, seizing my heart and smothering my love. I recognized the way the family sank into uncomfortable silence, their eyes darting between us. I fought to mask my hurt, but inside, I felt invisible, a shadow amid the growing divide. Whenever I dared to suggest ideas about family events, Jenna was quick to interject that she had it all handled. I felt suspended, caught in her web of control as I started to become a ghost in my own life. In quiet moments at home, memories of our laughter and adventure conjured warmth, but also sorrow. As I navigated this new reality, a deep loneliness began to settle over me, whispering words of self-doubt that echoed in the chambers of my heart. I often found myself walking past the very flowers I had planted with affection, only to be reminded of Jenna's jeering remarks that seeped into the air around me like poison. Friends would listen when I spoke of my turmoil. They urged me to reclaim my place, reminding me of the mother I had been, the one who had overcome enormous challenges. But as I crouched before my kitchen sink, scrubbing stubborn residue from the plates, the shadows of humiliation loomed behind me, weighing heavily. Jenna's remarks continued to infiltrate my life, wrapping around my heart like chains. I remember the poignant moment at another holiday gathering when she raised a toast, her voice ringing bright and cheerful. To family, and to Rose, who manages to keep the past alive. The sarcasm dripped like honey from her words, colliding with the laughter of those around us. It stung, sharp and agonizing, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if I were pulling away from every thread that wove me into this family. In those moments, I searched for support in James's eyes, but his distracted gaze indicated he was caught in a crossfire he didn't know how to navigate. Each joke Jenna pulled on my expense traced invisible scars across my heart. While I was fighting for my place in our family, I suspected that my son was being drawn deeper into her world where I no longer belonged. Days blurred into weeks, and the distance between us widened further. I knew I had to confront Jenna to reclaim my dignity, but the thought of facing her filled me with dread. The thought of shattering the fragile balance I once cherished with James gnawed at my heart. I felt a tumult brewing inside. What I needed was fortitude, a shield to protect the love I bore for him and myself. In quiet moments, I tried to draw strength from the mothering memories I cherished, whispering a mantra that began to form within the crevices of my heart. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. I realized that confronting Jenna wouldn't be merely a battle for my dignity, but also a path to rekindle my connection with my son. It was time to stand resolutely in my truth, armed with the love I had poured into our family and the sacrifices I had embraced over the years. At last, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the encroaching shadows, a sense of purpose propelling me toward the confrontation ahead. I had woven the fabric of our family with care, and it was time to ensure those threads weren't severed by Jenna's ever-tightening grip. The storm was gathering, and I would brace for its arrival with unwavering strength. Days moved slowly, each one echoing with the tension I carried. As the weather shifted from crisp fall to the chill of winter, anticipation built within me, almost palpable. I knew that I needed to brace myself for the confrontation with Jenna, but before that, I had to gather the necessary evidence. The shameful whispers, the stinging barks of ridicule, they had to be documented. I planned to map out my thoughts clearly, establishing a firm basis for my claims. I began to observe closely, attending family gatherings with heightened awareness, taking mental notes of Jenna's interactions. With each encounter, I noticed the delicate dance of manipulation she orchestrated. I felt like a detective in a family drama, silently cataloging evidence while holding steadfast to my resolve. The table gatherings transformed into diplomatic missions, and instead of joy, I was met with slight jabs and veiled insults, all hidden in layers of pleasantries. The kitchen often served as the backdrop for my investigations. I would linger a bit longer, washing dishes or organizing the pantry, listening as Jenna and James chatted animatedly in the living room. With an ear tuned to their voices, I could decipher the cues. "Mom's cooking isn't always what it used to be," Jenna laughed lightly, and my heart sank. "Yet," James would chime in, "she's still got it." I caught a glimmer of hope in his defense, but each compliment felt muddled beneath Jenna's growing haunts. I found myself clinging to those breadcrumbs of acknowledgement, while more chips were taken from my dignity. Even casual conversations became grating. One evening, while attempting to share a favorite family anecdote over dinner, Jenna waved her fork dismissively. "I'm sure you've told that story 1,000,000 times, Rose. We all love it, but maybe we can add some new material?" The laughter that followed pulled the rug from beneath me. I wanted to scream, but instead, I searched for James's eyes. There, dimmed yet fluttering with uncertainty, caught in his crossfire between his mother and the woman he married. As holidays approached, so did fresh opportunities for more of Jenna's veiled jabs. I decided I had to prepare myself meticulously, creating folders filled with notes, reflections, and any comments that chipped away at my spirit. I noted phrases and transgressions that particularly stood out. Each written word was woven into a larger narrative of how her controlling behavior was not only impacting me, but also our family as a whole. One fateful day, I found myself alone with Jenna as I helped her prepare for a sliding scale charity event she was hosting. Another opportunity for me to either shine or suffer her dismissive nearness. Our kitchen exuded the aroma of roasted vegetables while I prepped alongside her. My heart raced as she began to speak, layering her voice with sweet, melodic tones to hide the sharpness underneath, a version of manipulation I was finally beginning to understand. "Do you remember when you tried to have that big Thanksgiving dinner last year?" She laughed, tossing her hair back as I winced internally, recalling her comments from that day. "James said you almost burned the turkey twice. I don't know how you didn't just order takeout," she continued, leaning into that familiar territory of mockery wrapped in false warmth. I stood there gripping the cutting board tightly, my knuckles whitening, allowing her laughter to wash over me and reveal the larger scheme. Her remarks were designed to cut, meant to reinforce that I was out of touch and out of control. I could feel my resolve shifting. My heart raced, but I remained silent, unwilling to serve her narrative further. Afterward, in the privacy of my room that night, I sat surrounded by the evidence I had gathered, a collection of betrayals stitched into my memories. I whispered my mantra: "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." Each repetition recharged me, shaping my thoughts into a methodical plan. I knew I had to craft my words carefully and strategically to pierce through the layers of Jenna's defenses. I reached out to dear friends and distant family, seeking counsel and sharing snippets of my experience. Their encouragement fortified my resolve. Many had witnessed the shift I felt but struggled to articulate. I learned that others had faced similar struggles, where daughters-in-law destabilized family dynamics, weaving webs of control and exclusion. After each gathering, I'd comb through my notes, turning emotional moments into logical layouts. I analyzed Jenna's patterns more closely, the hollow laughs, the snide comments that lay thicker than the scent of spices in our shared culinary endeavors. It became an arduous task, but I was fueled by protective instincts, an urgent need to articulate my experiences. A few weeks later, as the holidays neared and the air thickened with anticipation, I prepared to confront her directly. My heart raced as I organized my thoughts, piecing together the evidence patiently collected. "I have to speak up," I told myself fiercely. The thought was refreshing, a subtle thrill laced with apprehension. When the time finally arrived and we were all gathered at the table, the family buzzed with excitement over dinner preparations. The sense of cranberry and pumpkin pie filled the air, laughter ringing bright. My stomach churned, but I sat resolutely at my place, poised to absorb the conversations that buzzed around me, ready to summon all the strength I could breathe into those moments. I knew then, as I glanced around the assembled family, that it was now or never. I could no longer allow myself to be edged out of the life I had so lovingly built. I steadied my breath and prepared for the storm to break, cloaked in the armor of memories, whispers of truth, and the dignity I would soon reclaim. The confrontation was not only a path back to my son, it was a reclamation of my spirit. The moment was ripe. I would see Jenna in a new light, confronting manipulation with the steadfast love I'd always carried. The atmosphere around the table was electric, filled with laughter and the clinking of silverware as families lined up their plates, blissfully unaware of the impending tension straining against the room's festive warmth. I caught snippets of conversation. The kids were eagerly boasting about their latest school accomplishments, while the adults thoughtfully discussed upcoming vacations and future plans. Each cheerful note struck a discordant chord inside me, a reminder of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. As I inhaled the mouth-watering aromas wafting from the kitchen, I could feel my pulse quicken. When Jenna finally made her entrance, her presence sparked an air of celebration, but with it came the familiar sense of dread that lingered in my chest. She wore a dazzling smile, as if playing the designated role of a loving daughter-in-law. But I had sharpened my awareness, attuned to the layers of deceit cloaked beneath her surface charm. "What a lovely feast we've prepared, haven't we, Rose?" Jenna chimed, her eyes barely flickering toward me before scanning the room for approval. My heart raced as her words struck a note that felt like a challenge, a prelude to the confrontation I had been straining to embrace. "Yes, it's beautiful," I replied evenly, meeting her gaze as my breath sharpened. "I appreciate the effort you've put in." The look in her eyes shifted just for a moment, and I could sense her excitement surging, eager to get the evening back on track. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of my conviction bubbling to the surface as I knew I had to be the one to initiate the confrontation. As the meal began, I could feel Jenna weaving her narrative, directing the dinner conversation and casting side glances toward James, gauging his reactions with every light-hearted jab. It became evident this was her stage, an open invitation to belittle while masquerading as charming under the guise of merriment. Every quip seemed calculated, aimed to push me to the periphery, with every forkful of turkey cutting into my resolve. This could not continue. I brushed my fingers along the edge of my plate, feeling the cool porcelain beneath my fingertips, grounding myself in the moment. With a resolute breath, I slid my chair back ever so slightly, catching the attention of those nearby. The laughter dwindled into an anxious hush, their eyes darting between Jenna and me, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "Jenna," I began, my voice steady, yet layered with a tremor of vulnerability. "There's something I need to address." The room stilled and I could feel eyes widen with anticipation, the food momentarily forgotten. I've held on far too long to the belief that kindness will soften harsh words, but kindness is not weakness. I locked gaze with Jenna, who merely stared, her expression flickering with uncertainty. "Your comments, over many gatherings," I continued, "reveal who you truly think I am. I'm here with you to share the joys of family, not as a target for jests and insults." A jumble of emotions wrangled inside me, but I remained firm. "I can no longer endure this masked mockery you seem to savor." The silence enveloped us like a thick fog. James's eyebrows furrowed as he looked between Jenna and me, who had finally dropped her practiced smile. A crack in her facade was evident. Still, she maintained her composure, leaning back in her chair as if sizing me up. "Oh, come on, Rose. Don't take everything so seriously. It's just a bit of fun." "Fun at my expense," I interjected sharply, my heart racing. "The burden of the laughs always falls on me. This isn't the loving family I envisioned. Instead, your words have constructed a wall between us." I could feel the tension shift in the room. Glances exchanged amongst the family held a mixture of surprise and discomfort as the truth settled like an unwelcome guest in the corner. I continued, drawing strength from the conviction I had gathered through sleepless nights, my notes, and the friends who bolstered my resolve. "You might not think it matters, but each diminutive quip strengthens the distance between us," I pressed onward. "And you don't just affect me. Each joke subtly pulls on James's loyalties. He's caught in this painfully silent crossfire that I refuse to participate in any longer." I paused to see the dawning comprehension on many faces, especially near James, who sat rigid, his face tinted crimson. "Mom, he began, but I quickly raised my hand to silence him. I didn't want to draw him into this verbal tumult. Not yet. I needed to confront the puppet strings Jenna had so skillfully woven around our family. "Jenna, it's not too late to reset the narrative we've built. You can either share laughter and love in a way that invites empathy or cling to quips that isolate us. You were not invited to tear me down in this family, and I refuse to let you continue." Jenna's mask of mirth cracked further, and I could sense her grip on the room loosening. The atmosphere around us became tense, with my words almost palpable, reverberating as if the essence of our family was echoing back. "Is this really how you wish to start the season of gratitude?" she finally retorted, her bravado faltering as anger flashed through her eyes. "By attacking me?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm starting this season of gratitude by reclaiming my voice in our family. I deserve respect just as you do. Yet, it cannot be conditional upon a title or a role you've created for me. Love must be genuine, not a performance." Her expression was a mixture of fury and humiliation, while my heart pounded in my chest. I could feel a myriad of emotions swirling within me: fear, but also a dawning sense of liberation. I was beginning to see her for what she was, a master of illusion. James stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor, shattering the lingering silence. "Mom, this isn't the way," he stated, his voice wavering but firm. "Maybe we should all take a break." "No," I shook my head. "James, this is the moment that matters. It's time to have the conversation we've all skirted around. You deserve to hear how your wife operates. I can't shield you anymore." The weight of my words hung heavy in the air as I locked eyes with him, urging him to navigate the tangled web of his loyalties. I refused to back down. This was our family, and no one person, regardless of their place at the table, should ever dictate its definition. The murmurs of tentative agreement from others at the table lifted a glimmer of hope deep within me. I wasn't alone. I was fighting for recognition. Fight we must, because in the name of family, truth needed a voice. "What's it going to be, Jenna?" I asked directly, my gaze unwavering as we stood on the precipice of acknowledgement. "Will you choose to embrace love, or shall we remain adversaries? This is your moment to choose, and I hope it's wise." Jenna's silence echoed louder than any laughter that had come before. The time had arrived. It wouldn't be easy, but it was essential. With the family gathered at that table, feeling our shared energy intensify, I sensed a flicker of support there for me. Would they stand behind me as I held Jenna accountable? I yearned to discover the truth beneath the family's facade and reclaim every ounce of love I shared with them before the darkness closed in. The tension at the table hung like thick fog, every face caught under the weight of unspoken words. I felt the electric pulse of anticipation, the raw energy buzzing in the air, pushing me forward. I breathed in deeply, preparing to strike while the iron was hot. "Jenna," I began, voice steady despite the thrumming pulse in my chest. "There's something I need to say." Eyes shifted toward me, an awkward silence settling over the gathering. Jenna's smile faltered only briefly, but I recognized that brief lapse as my opening. "The family gatherings, the jokes you crack at my expense, they've taken a toll." Her demeanor hardened, but I pressed onward. "You laugh, and everyone else joins in. But it hurts, Jenna. This facade of humor has become an offensive tool aimed at my dignity. It's not fun. It's an attack, plain and simple." The air crackled with shock. Around the table, family members exchanged quick glances. I could sense James stiffen beside me, his confusion growing as the weight of the conversation settled in. In response, Jenna fired back, "Oh, come on, it's all in good fun. If you can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't be here." She leaned back, flaunting her nonchalance, but I detected a tremor lurking beneath her bravado. "No," I countered, my voice clear and unwavering. "It's not just fun for me. It's humiliating to be the punchline at family gatherings. I deserve more from you and this family, just as you do. I'm here to share love, to support, not to be made the subject of ridicule." Panic flickered on Jenna's face as my words struck home, the sting of truth evident. James interjected, hesitation hanging in the air. "Mom, this isn't fair." I raised my hand to silence him, wanting this moment to unfold as I had envisioned. "James, please, you need to see this for what it is." I turned my focus back to Jenna. "Your remarks create division, not unity. You wield your humor like a sword, and it's cutting deep into our family fabric." As I spoke, I felt a heady mix of fear and liberation. For years I'd endured her jibes and distillations of my character, all while trying to preserve the love I had for James and our family. But I could no longer hide behind false perceptions of civility. "You don't get to dictate how our family dynamics work," I said, the words firm. "If this is going to be a family, we must ground our relationships in respect and sincerity. It can't be built on sarcasm that alienates those who should be loved." The silence enveloping the room felt electric. I searched for understanding in James's eyes, but found only confusion. Nevertheless, I pressed on. "This is our chance to reforge what has become brittle. Our roles must evolve, or we'll find ourselves lost in this mockery." Jenna's laughter, which was once an easy melody, had twisted into something darker. "You think you can change everything with a few words? That I'm the sole problem here?" I could hear the resentment in her voice, the blame she clung to so desperately. "This isn't just about you." I shook my head, determined to stay my course. "I've watched your control grow, and now you're pulling James into your chaos. I'll no longer let you define me or our family dynamics." I glanced around the table, scanning their expressions. Some looked confused, others sympathetic. There was a flicker of realization in a few, a growing awareness of how deeply Jenna's behavior impacted our family dynamic. The shadows of division had long lingered, now finally pushed into the light. "Jenna, if you want a healthy family, then we need a healthier dialogue," I replied with resolve. "I ask you now to choose. Will you embrace the warmth of familial love, or will you persist in this adversarial posture?" For a moment, she seemed caught, her defenses wavering as James shifted in his seat. "Maybe we all need to take a step back," he said, trying to navigate between us. The strength of my voice had begun to draw a line clearly. "Mom, I know this isn't what you wanted, but—" "No, James," I interrupted gently, urging him to listen. "This is it. This is the moment. We have to face the truth of our family dynamics and decide how we proceed, not just sweep it under the carpet for another day." Jenna shot him an angry glance, but I could tell she was crumbling under the pressure. I watched as her posture shifted, the bluster surrounding her gradually deflating. "I just wanted us to be a happy family," she finally admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought humor would draw us closer." I leaned in, sensing this opening. "But it's not making us closer, Jenna. It's tearing us apart. If we want to forge a real future together, it has to start by recognizing our flaws and committing to healing." The tension in the room breathed as family members leaned closer, pulled into our exchange. I felt their energies mingle with mine, a shared aspiration stirring. "Let's build our relationships on love, raw, genuine love, and leave the mockery behind." Finally, a soft murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The collective air shifted, a bridge slowly bridging over the deep chasm that had formed among us. Jenna's expression softened slightly, revealing the vulnerable truth beneath her facade. "I'll try," she replied quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't want to lose this family." With that simple exchange, so fragile yet powerful, we took our first tentative step toward reconciliation, the promise of a new chapter for our family, one rooted in mutual respect and genuine connection. As we sat around the table, I could feel a sense of understanding taking root. Just beneath the surface, the love we all shared had begun to seep through the cracks, glimmering with renewed hope. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but together, determinedly, we could stitch back the seams of our family anew. The air around the table thickened with anticipation as Jenna's words hung in the space between us. A collective breath seemed to emerge from everyone, confirming the significance of this moment. I glanced at the concerned faces of family members, each demonstrating a readiness for change, a path toward healing. "Let's take a moment," I proposed, my voice steady yet gentle. "We need to reflect on what we've just shared before we rush back to our usual routines." "Right," Jenna murmured, her voice wavering. "What do you want from me, Rose?" This question rang out and created a sense of vulnerability in her stance. "Transparency," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "We need to redefine how we communicate. We can no longer rely on jabs disguised as humor. It should come from a place of love and understanding." As I spoke, I felt the weight of my own conviction grow stronger. The little victories of dismantling the toxicity, tipping the balance in our family, began to coalesce into a new foundation. We've been dancing around these issues for far too long. It's time to recognize our mistakes. Jenna's bravado faded further, her defenses crumbling under the gravity of our confrontation. "I thought humor would unify us," she finally admitted, a hint of pleading in her tone. "I just wanted everyone to be happy." Her admission held a somber truth. "But it's doing the opposite," I replied, the warmth in my voice softening the honesty. "It's time we tell each other how we feel, openly, without fear of judgment." James watched intently, nodding as he shifted in his seat. "Mom's right. If we're to strengthen our family ties, we need to communicate differently. No more undermining or belittling. We need to lift each other." A murmured agreement rippled through the room. Family members leaned closer, drawn in by the earnestness of our words. I could feel the emotional energy weaving tightly among us, stitching together the spaces that had once felt divided. "What happens when we stammer through old hurt?" Jenna asked, her vulnerability strangely refreshing. She looked at me with teary eyes. "How do we face what's happened?" "By acknowledging it together," I suggested, sensing the moment of authenticity blossoming around the table. "We can reflect on the past, understand each other's pain, then actively work toward release. We can't move forward while holding on to past grievances." Still uncertain, Jenna blinked rapidly but let out a small sigh. "Maybe I've been pushing everyone away without realizing it," she admitted. "I get so caught up in wanting to fit in, I forget to notice how others feel." "Yes," I encouraged softly. "Being family means sharing our truth and finding strength in honesty. None of us need to play a character to earn acceptance." A palpable shift enveloped the room as family members nodded, hope rekindling. "I'm willing," Jenna murmured, brushing away tears. "I want to build something authentic with all of you. I just don't know how yet." "Let's start with small steps," I suggested, feeling a spark of optimism igniting. "Regular check-ins so we stay connected. We'll share how we truly feel openly and without fear. That way we can address issues before they escalate." James squeezed her hand, and with that small gesture, I knew we were on the path toward rebuilding genuine bonds. "I agree," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "Let's make a real commitment to this new chapter." "What do you think, everyone?" A chorus of nods swept through the table, affirming our collective decision to foster this new relationship. As a family, we were telling ourselves that laughter could stem from joy, from the comfort of love rather than derision. Jenna began to smile, albeit tentatively. You know what? I think we can redefine humor. Let's make it joyous, inclusive. I want our laughter to be the kind that uplifts us. Relief washed over me. We had crossed an essential threshold, navigating vulnerability and emerging with renewed purpose. As laughter began to fill the room again, this time genuine, I felt a tightness in my chest release. Perhaps we weren't mending broken pieces just yet, but we were willing to weave new threads into our family tapestry, one rich with texture and humility. In that space, we had just taken our first steps toward a new understanding, anchored in respect and sincerity. I knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, yet in that moment it felt possible. Surrounded by the warmth of newfound commitment, with every heartbeat I recognized how love transformed, not merely a distant echo, but a tangible presence, gathering increasingly stronger around us at the table.